Russia now threatens nuclear retaliation after the United States seized a Russian oil tanker at sea. What began as a sanctions enforcement operation is now triggering dangerous escalation between two nuclear powers. So, what exactly happened, and how close is this to spiraling out of control? Let's break it down. On January 7, 2026, U.S. forces, including Navy SEALs and the Coast Guard, boarded and seized a Russian-flagged oil tanker called Marinera, about 190 miles south of Iceland in the North Atlantic Ocean. This wasn't a sudden move. The tanker had been under pursuit for nearly 2 weeks. Back on December 21st, in the Caribbean Sea, the ship evaded an initial U.S. boarding attempt while heading to load sanctioned Venezuelan oil. According to U.S. officials, this ship was part of a so-called shadow fleet, vessels accused of secretly moving oil for Russia, Iran, and Venezuela in violation of U.S. sanctions. During the chase, the tanker allegedly changed its name, flag, and registration, a classic tactic to avoid capture. By the time U.S. forces boarded it, the ship was empty, but the message was already clear. At the same time, the U.S. also seized another tanker, the Sophia, in the Caribbean, described as stateless and linked to Chinese operators. Here's where things get more dangerous. During the operation, Russian naval assets, including a submarine and surface vessels, were in the same area, escorting the tanker. Russia had formally asked the U.S. to stop the pursuit. Washington refused. U.S. European Command says there was no direct confrontation, but the proximity alone raised alarms. The crew, which includes Russian nationals, was detained. Russia claims they were taken hostages. The U.S. says this is a lawful detention with possible criminal charges for sanctions evasion. Moscow's response was immediate and explosive. Senior Russian lawmakers called the seizure piracy, an attack on Russian sovereignty. One official openly suggested torpedoing U.S. ships and evoked Russia's nuclear doctrine, which allows nuclear use if sovereignty is threatened. So far, no military retaliation has happened, but the rhetoric alone is enough to rattle global nerves. This incident doesn't exist in isolation. It comes amid war in Ukraine, tightening U.S. sanctions on Russian energy, and a major shift in Venezuela. Just days earlier, the U.S. captured Nicolas Maduro, installed an interim government, and demanded Venezuela cut ties with Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. Venezuela has now agreed to sell tens of millions of barrels of oil to the U.S., with Washington controlling the sales. China has called this economic bullying. The big question now, will Russia move beyond words, or will diplomacy step in before a single miscalculation turns a tanker seizure into a global crisis?
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.